No, I'm not gonna stop calling meetings to discuss unrelated content, as you put it. I don't care that it's not my job. Actually, you know what? We can circle back on this. I'll call you back. Hey, you're just the person I was looking for. Yeah, I'm Lexus, and I'm here today to humbly, not forcefully at all, totally not, present to you my Miraculous Ladybug redesigns. But with a twist. You see, I am going to design these characters with the same obstacles in mind, presumably, that the Miraculous Ladybug team would have while designing for an actual company. Let me explain. One reason I really love animation is because it is so expansive. You can do anything. With live action, practical effects can take you very far and they can look really good. But with animation, you have just so many options. And spawning something completely new into that world is much easier and oftentimes much more effective than it ever will be in live action. But there are limitations if you have perhaps like a budget. And like if you're on a TV budget instead of a movie budget. And also your Miraculous Ladybug, because, tell me if I'm wrong, but it does sort of look like it was made with a shoestring and a couple of marbles, and that's, of course, no shade on the team. It's not their fault, but animation is expensive, so you have to cut corners in whatever ways you can. That's why the streets of Paris look liminally empty, if you will. um, the reason I wanted to do this exercise is because of that very fact. Budget is going to play a huge role into what you're able to animate for your show and the type of designs you can have. It is similar to how 2D designs, when they're making it for a 2D show, they have very simple designs. It's because the more complicated the design, the more time it'll take, and there's different limitations for 2D than there are 3D. For example, on a 2D character, having floating patterns, such as like polka dots or stripes that aren't connected to anything, that's going to be super hard to animate. And that's actually why, something you'll know if you're a Miraculous fan, no doubt, that they made the switch from 2D to 3D because the spots on Ladybug's suit were too hard to track between shots because not only is it time consuming, if it's done even a little bit wrong, your eyes catch that and it looks really disorienting. Now, when you have a 3D character, there's different limitations to take in mind, which I will attempt to elaborate on as we go through the speed paint. Speaking of, let's get to it. Starting with the one, the only Miss Ladybug, aka Marinette Dupenchang. The one big issue I have with her suit in the show is that it's boring. It's just a skin-tight suit with spots, and the only area of variation is at her neck where it's blacked out, but otherwise it's incredibly lame. It pales in comparison to some other designs. So with the redesign, I'm going to try and add more points of interest. To create this interest, I've separated her suit into separate portions, being the torso and the shorts, and then we also have gloves that have the spotted design, and then we have different, more flexible-looking materials on her shoulders, and her torso area specifically is implied to be a really flexible design. That way she can move and flip around and do her gymnastics and whatnot. I gave her boots because I can't imagine running around Paris and scaling buildings in onesie feet being all that comfortable, and on those boots I put little spikes on the back because I thought they were interesting, and they parallel to how bugs have like the little hairs on their feet. It was a detail I noticed while doing concept sketches for the designs that I was going to do, which I'll throw up on the screen now. It was exploration of what Ladybugs looked like, what Ladybug's suit looked like, and the different directions I could go with it. Admittedly, I did have some ideas about what to do already because I've actually been thinking about doing these redesigns since June of last year, which I'll throw up some of the other concept sketches from earlier onto the screen as well. I have unfortunately sacrificed the pigtails for some space buns. That's because I think the space buns do more for her silhouette, and I've also axed the little ribbons that are in her hair because they just were not that significant of a detail, and they definitely don't need to be there now that I've added more to her suit. The mask has also been changed significantly. Instead of the polka dotted pattern, I have made it black with 3 white spots to replicate that of what you can find on an actual ladybug. I also think that it makes her eyes pop more. The last big change for Ladybug I've made is to Lucky Charm. The original design was confusing and not all that appealing, as it was just a string wrapped around her waist with the main part attached to her side. You can tell even the animators don't know what's up with it because in every shot she's holding it from a different end and she's using it in a different way. In order to combat this, I've attached Lucky Charm to her forearm so that she can grab it, and I've given 2 beads at the front of it so that she can hold it from either end and throw it and still have a sort of anchor to hold on by, which I've tried to emphasize in the pose that I chose to show off the design. The last thing I want to touch on with the superhero design is I have left room to yassify, if you will. What do I mean by that? Well, in every show of this nature, there has to be the hour-long special in a different place where the superhero gets an upgrade to their design and can sell more toys out of it. I'm just being realistic here, and I think I have left plenty of room for this design to slay more, if you will. But as it is, I think it works much better as a superhero design, and it is much more interesting and fun to look at. Marinette's civilian design is actually quite simple. The original design is very of its time, and I think it tried too hard to be trendy rather than to reflect Marinette herself, which is why I don't think it ages particularly well. And to combat this, I tried to make her design very much focused on, at least my interpretation of her character, which is a character who's a lot shyer and less confident than she is when she's in her hero form. So I've given her back the pigtails, don't worry, but this time they're in the front, so she can kind of hide in them a little bit. And she has a sweater over another sweater. The outer sweater she has embroidered some flowers on, so we're keeping the flower motif, but we're just adding that personal touch rather than like a shirt she got at Old Navy. The pants are very simple because I've basically switched the black and the pink so that the pink's on top. I've given her frilly little socks with some Mary Janes because she's cutesy and fashionable like that. And there you have it, my interpretation of Marinette and Ladybug. I quite like how they came out. Of course, there are some things I could have done better in retrospect. For example, I think the embroidery could have been done a bit better, and I really wish I'd found some more creative way to utilize Lucky Charm in her design. But overall, I think this is a good attempt at a redesign. On to the fandom's golden boy and the writer's least favorite child, Adrian Agreste. Admittedly, I think there's a lot more to talk about with his writing than there is with his design, but that doesn't mean there aren't things that I would change. Starting with the suit, I think it stands out way too much from the rest of the cast. His design is clearly supposed to be a leather bodycon suit. Ignoring the weird implications this has in the modern day, it also is just too different. Not that there aren't precedents for it. His suit is supposed to be based off of Catwoman, and Plag is unique in the way that he has so uniquely influenced human history, albeit destructively, but he is still different from every other Miraculous, including Tiki. But neither of these reasons make up for the fact that he's just too different. The designs aren't unified in any way. And because it's a leather suit, the patterns are also really different from everyone else's. So I'm doing away with the leather. No more. There are, unlike with Ladybug, things that I really like about the suit. The belt that goes into a tail, mwah, beautiful, perfect, simple, done. Tail motif, great. The shoes that go into paws at the bottom of them, perfect. Very good and practical way to include the paw motif. So I'm stealing those. But then we get back to the ears and I'm put off a little bit more. It's not that there's anything inherently wrong with them. They're just supposed to be like clip-on ears, but I just feel kind of about them, especially given the ambiguity of them actually being ears. Like when you get a close up, obviously they're not connected to his head in any way, but there are parts of the show where they're like moving or they're flicking. Like you can't hear anything out of those, bitch. Stop that. So I went and replaced them with a hood. Hood is a controversial choice. I know. I know that Miraculous Ladybug characters in hoods don't look the best, but if I gave this to them from the very beginning, I think they could work it out. Theoretically, it would be clipped to the back of his head so it wasn't like flying about or getting in front of his face. We as the audience don't see that, but that's just practically. And they would peek out with his little ears showing at the top, and I think it's a decent solution to the ear thing. On the topic of cats, I think the combination that they've gone with for the show is extremely odd. The two main Miraculouses, the yin and yang of this world, are house cats and a ladybug? He's still going to be called the Black Cat Miraculous because I think someone else owns Black Panther and it is not his Parisian ass, okay? But I'm intending more of a wild cat than a domestic house cat with a bell on his neck. I mean, that's just strange, I think. You will also notice that I've added a green accent all throughout because I think having him be only black is another one of those things that makes him stand out too much from the rest of his peers. Specifically to the gloves and the claws because it'll make him stand out more when he's doing Cataclysm. And on the topic of the gloves, I've made them a bit more bulky and they reach further up his arm. I was gonna go with more gauntlet types, but A, that was hard to draw, and B, I don't want to step on Vi's toes because that's probably a big reason why I was thinking of gauntlets. So they're still thinner, they're not like thick, but they're longer and they are just like a little bit chunkier. And finally, my favorite part, it can be your least favorite part, but I really like it, is the little tails that I've added to his hair. And you're supposed to think of it as like a jellyfish cut, and these just reach out, and they're supposed to be a tail motif. I know that technically means he has three tails, but I don't care. I thought it was fun. I thought it was enjoyable. It's also supposed to be like a little symbolic because when he's with his father, his hair is all styled and very particular, not a hair out of place. But then when he gets to be Cat Noir, it gets to just be free and wild and he gets to have his weird little fucking cut. I like it. Going on to a civilian design, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't think it's that great. I think it's okay. I think it's just not that different from Adrian's actual design. Really quickly, I'm going to explain my design, and then I'm going to explain why I think his design was really good from the start. His hair, as you can see, looks really stiff and a little strange. That's because everywhere he goes, he's gonna get paparazzi'd, so he needs to look very fancy in front of all the cameras. And obviously, this is a thing controlled by his father. With his shirt, all I've done is I've extended the sleeves to make it a long sleeve shirt, and then the pants, instead of giving him jeans, they're like those long, wide-legged pants that you see when you look up Parisian men in fashion. And for his shirt, did actually quite like that they added the colors. All I've done was make it sort of look like a fencing face. That's what it's supposed to be. I don't know exactly how well that comes across, but I was just trying to do things differently. And then his shoes are just shoes. I don't know. There's black shoes, like the fancy ones, kind of. I don't know. Let me explain why his actual design is actually quite good. Maybe the curtains are just blue, but what I get from it is that his white button-up shirt is what he shows on the outside. It's representative of his father and his restriction of him. It's, buttons. It's very formal. And then underneath, he has his black shirt, which is representative of Cat Noir and who he wants to be. And it's got the sort of Old Navy four stripes for kids because he's a kid. He wants to be a kid. He doesn't want to be a model. And there you have it. It's the one I'm the least proud of, but it's because I had the least amount of problems with his design overall, so that's not a bad thing. Before we move on to the final redesign of Moth, I would like to address the fact that a new season of Miraculous Ladybug has come out, and Marinette does have a new design. I think Marinette's new design is a lot better. I think it's more, if you will. It's given a little bit more. My only issue is that it does still seem to lean on being trendy, which is going to be really bad in like 2 years when everyone decides they hate this look now. But it's fine. I think the blazer, keeping the blazer, interesting choice, but it's the choice they made. Whatever. They've added the embroidery, which is my idea. I'm kidding. I'm gonna choose to believe that she did that herself. It's fine. I like it. It's chill. Not the best design in the world, though. Adrian looks exactly the same. Why? Because, like I said, he's great already. He's fine. His face, they kind of wonked up his face in a way that I don't know how to handle. But other than that, it's good. Good job. For the new design style as a whole, I do really like it. The lighting's a lot better, the environments are a lot better, the faces look more real, like fleshy. I can grab them. They look less plasticky, is what I'm trying to say. Good job. We are almost done. On to the final design of the night, Hawk Moth. His design was actually the most difficult for me because I hadn't thought about it until I really decided to make the video. So I had more concept work for him than either of the other characters. I have a similar problem with his design as I did Marinette's, that being that it is boring. He has a suit jacket and then like a skin tight mask, but other than that, he's really not all that describable. So from his design, I did keep the gloves, pants, shoes, and the undershirt with the brooch, but I did completely redesign his suit jacket, as well as his mask. For the mask, I've just converted it to the actual shape of a butterfly. It fits perfectly over his face, and it gives a very dramatic silhouette for the head. The only thing I kept about the original jacket was the colors, and then I kept the little, like, foldable part that extends. I don't actually know how to describe it, but when a suit jacket, like, folds over and it gets pointy. I'll show a picture. I've made his coattails look like butterfly wings, and I've given them a pattern, as well as at the end they go into the little wispies that the Kwamis have. And for the back of it, I at first tried to make it look asymmetrical, but that didn't work. So I just had it go across in ruffles that resemble like what a butterfly looks like with its wings kind of folded. You'll notice with this design that it's a lot more free-flowing than the other characters, like I've not tried to make it skin tight. This is because for the first like 2.5 seasons, he's animated in the exact same way every episode, and it's obviously just copy and pasted, which is perfectly fine, but I believe that that gives them a little more room to play around and make it extra extravagant and, deal with the physics of it. The only potential problem I see with this is, I don't know if he looks like he'd have a wife anymore. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm kidding. Don't stereotype, guys. Only do it when it's funny. When it comes to Gabriel Agreste and his civilian design, I've kept it very simple. You'll notice that his color palette is changed from mostly white to mostly black, which I I do realize that that kind of messes with the whole symbolism of what I was talking about with Adrian earlier. So maybe another draft where the suit is white would be accurate. But for now, for now, I've switched his color palette to be black to represent the fact that he's mourning, he's in grief, he's sad about his wife dying. Womp womp. I know that he's a fashion designer, but he's not shown to be particularly eccentric, at least when he's a civilian. And if you look up, like, fashion designers, you'll notice a lot of them, they're not wearing these wacky, high fashion designs. A lot of them are just in suits. To really hammer in the fact that he is a grieving man, I've made his suit look like the traditional mourning outfits of the men back in the Victorian times. It is shortened so that it's only like a top, but having it full length was a bit goofy and just like a tad too much on the nose. It's kind of weird. Despite Gabriel's design, I think being changed the most from his original, especially in concept, I don't actually have that much to say about it. I've just made his villain design more flashy and his civilian design more sad. Unfortunately, that about wraps up our time here. If you've stayed around this long, I want to give like a huge thank you to you. I love character design, but there's not many opportunities in real life to yap about it, so this format where I just get to talk at you works great for me. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and please comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you like, what you didn't like. I am so open to constructive criticism and I would love to have a dialogue with you about it. Obligatory subscribe if you want to see my videos in the future. I don't think I'll do another Miraculous Ladybug redesign, but I might do a rewrite with the same premise of what I think would go on an actual TV program for the demographic and all the whatnots. And other than that, let me know if there's any other like series or movies or anything where you want me to redesign characters. It's a really fun practice, and even if the result isn't something profound, it's still a really fun exercise and it creates a lot of interesting dialogue. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye!